I've been the best ever since day one when I walked into this company, and I've been vilified and hated since that day because Paul Heyman saw something in me that nobody else wanted to admit. That's right, I'm a Paul Heyman guy.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and there are a lot of OG comic book creators out there. It seems like they want to work. They're still passionate about comic books, and it feels like maybe there's an agenda out there to marginalize these people, their contributions to comics, or perhaps what they can still offer to comic books. And here to talk with me about that is a man so OG, he's been reading comics since before I was born, and I am not a young man. He's not an old man, but he's getting close to there. The man so cool, they call him the Breen, the comic book hoarder, the voice of the voiceless. Eric Breen, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
So there's been a few things that we've seen this over the past few weeks where it feels like not only the comic book industry, players within the industry themselves are trying to downgrade people's accomplishments, marginalize their voice, but there's also some definite attempts by the comic book media themselves to really downplay people's importance and in their contributions to comics. The first one we'll talk about is Bill Willingham, extremely successful creator. From 2002 to 2015, he did Fables, 14 Eisner winnings. He's won 14 Eisners for that series, one of the most beloved series that you're going to find. Almost people across the board love that series. There was a couple of political statements in there that people certainly had an issue with here or there. And I think maybe even if he produced something today with those political statements, he would get some backlash because of the current political climate. That's for certain. But this is what Heidi MacDonald. Now, Heidi MacDonald used to work at DC Comics, specifically, I think, at Vertigo, where Fables was produced. She is of the industry. Obviously, she's behind the comics beat. This is what she had to say to downgrade his importance and what he brought to the comic books. In the naive bipartisan paradise of 2002, liberals and conservatives working on a comic together wasn't as much of a political statement as it is now. She's saying here that in today's climate, him espousing conservative views wipes out, his importance to comics and downplays perhaps what he can continue to contribute to comics. Don't you think that's weird?
Well, taking her statement, if you just look at it and gloss over it, she may not be downgrading his accomplishments until you read it again and see the word naive. Now, it seems to me like she's kind of doing a little revisionist history, because at the time she didn't seem to have a problem with it, but the landscape has changed, and maybe she's going along to get along. Now, a bipartisan paradise, I think that might be maybe a little snark attached to that, but adding naive in front is like, oh, we didn't know any better then. Now we know we're all supposed to have the same opinion, and anybody that doesn't, there's no room for you, in the club. It doesn't matter that he has 14 Eisner winners for this series. He's conservative. When we were naive back in the day, that was okay. But now that we know that it's not okay to be conservative in the comic book industry, should he even be allowed to produce Fables? I think is what she's trying to say. Oh yeah, I kind of get that. I said if you first glance, doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. Read between the lines, and she's saying, we don't want you in our hobby anymore. We don't want readers that agree with you. We don't want you. Now, it's kind of like what was it, like the Warren Ellis thing, where they say that we won't work with you again until you apologize to the satisfaction of everyone involved. Well, that's a never-ending list because they can keep moving the goalposts.
Now, Heidi MacDonald herself and The Beat had some revisionist history there too. Percy just brought it up on his channel. There was a story over 10 years ago about the Engine, Warren Ellis's forum, where they were making light of people sending Warren topless photos and the fact that he was distracted by goth women and all these things. And it was funny. And at that point, she was blaming the women. But now it's revisionist history. It's time to look at Warren Ellis on a different light. And it's quite convenient for people like Heidi McDonald and other people within the comic book media to do such things, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, that's like I said, but that's, revisionist history isn't unique to comics. We're revising history across the board now. And, comics is just a microcosm of that. Warren Ellis, by all metrics, is a creep. Everybody knew that, though. And once upon a time, he was a cutting edge writer. I don't know if that's the case any longer, but to hold his behavior from a decade and a half ago, when you didn't have a problem when it happened, why do you have a problem with it now? And it just seems like comics is continuing a purge of a particular kind of writer.
Well, it's crazy. Warren Ellis is, as progressive as they get. He's got the right political leanings, but now that what he did, once they look back on it, and even though they were a part of it, well, it's time to bring the hammer down, because you would hate for anyone to look at you, right?
Well, it's like, how many times do we see people getting canceled for 10-year-old tweets? So this is kind of, like I said, the comic equivalent of that. Now, the industry has to ask itself, is it, it's one thing, like Gerard Jones absolutely deserves to be blacklisted from the industry. But to equate what he did with Warren Ellis is a false equivalency. No charges were ever filed against Warren Ellis, if I remember correctly. It just kind of, it happened. It was something that went on and it ended. Everybody moved on. And now,
well, they haven't moved on. That's the problem.
No. I said no. And everybody moved on. But now we're revisiting all of those old things to effectively shut him out of the industry. And
well, that's not the only case. Obviously, we have the political leanings of Bill Willingham, so we got to revise that history. We have the proclivities of Warren Ellis in his personal life, which they've decided that now they have to revise it. We've also got the case of Rob Liefeld and Dan Jurgens this week. For some reason, they just decided that Rob Liefeld's X-Force #1 and Dan Jurgens' Death of Superman comics never existed. Just because people don't like Rob Liefeld, maybe he's outspoken. He doesn't like to draw feet. People like to make fun of him that, but they don't want to address the fact that he sold 5 million copies of X-Force #1. There's no denying it. It's the second highest selling comic in the history of the industry. You don't just get to purge his existence out because you decide that Rob Liefeld is too outspoken and too critical of the industry. We did a video not too long ago. You're not allowed to criticize the industry, even if you're Rob Liefeld, and it's essentially a living legend.
Now, okay, let's be honest. Rob Liefeld was absolutely in the right place at the right time. But there were a lot of people in the right place at the right time.
Only one person sold more than
right.
5 million comics.
Exactly.
His name's Jim Lee.
Now, if these same books had come along 5 years before or 5 years after, they wouldn't touch these numbers. But they did, and they did. So that can't be taken away. Whether you like him or not, whether, no one's trying to say X-Force #1 was the second best comic book ever produced, but it sold
X-Men
those numbers.
#1 wasn't the best comic book ever produced. It's the one that got ordered the most and sold the most.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But it doesn't it doesn't change the fact that it happened. So you may not like it. I don't like the fact that the biggest selling CD of all time in its first week was NSYNC, No Strings Attached.
Did you say stuff like that to my wife, and that is going to be over for you, sir?
But I can't take away the fact that it did. It doesn't make that the best CD, but it does make it the best selling. So you may not like it, Dan and Jamal, but
Speaking of Dan Slott and Jamal Igle, those are specifically the two comic book professionals. For some reason, decided to go with that.
Yeah, I said, and Jamal Igle went on to say that, when I worked in a shop and there was unsold copies all over the place. But it wasn't all that long ago that Jamal Igle said that the shops are the customers, not the people buying at the shops.
Well, is he going to put Todd McFarlane on blast? How many copies of Spawn 1 remain unsold?
Right. So I said, you can't have it both ways, Jamal. And I don't know. Like I said, we all know Rob Liefeld
Jamal Igle wishes that he could hype anything up, a tenth of the degree that Rob Liefeld can. Is Rob Liefeld as good an artist as Jamal Igle? I say he's better. Some people would disagree. That's fine. It's subjective. But Jamal Igle cannot generate a fraction of the interest that Rob Liefeld is, because he doesn't have the personality. He doesn't have the charisma. He doesn't have the likability factor. And I think it bothers them that people still like Rob Liefeld, even after his failures, and he's had many within the industry. People still enjoy him. They still look up to him. So now it's we got to purge him out because he's critical of the current state of comics, specifically the X-Men, which does suck for the most part.
That's the thing. It's not. They wouldn't have nearly the problem with Rob Liefeld selling that many books then if he were contrite, conciliatory, and agreed with the comic pros who control how the industry is worked today. That's just a fact. If he had apologized for his past success, apologized for his past views, and had the right way of thinking now, they wouldn't be after him. But he's got one of those rare commodities in comics. He can think for himself. He strays from the group, and
he doesn't need the industry to sell books. He doesn't. Rob Liefeld's name on a title, whether it's Archie or Marvel or whatever, creates interest in a book. It creates enthusiasm just from his name alone. There are very few people still in the industry that have that effect, Breen.
Yeah,
that pisses them off.
Right, because they don't want those people buying any books. They want the new audience that agrees with them that Rob Liefeld should be relegated to the dustbins of history. And Dan Jurgens, you check his social media timelines. He tweets about sports.
It's a normal dude.
Yeah, he's a normal guy. I don't know what his politics are, but I'm guessing politics don't define him.
Maybe he didn't retweet the right,
right. And remember, he did get in trouble for the tweet about the guy on the airplane.
He was in the right.
And so as I said, now it's not even enough to just be neutral. You have to be vocal in your disapproval of what the gatekeepers have deemed.
Green. In today's society, silence, no matter which direction, is seen by every side as you agreeing with the opposite of what they agree with.
Mm-hmm.
It's the weirdest thing in the world. You can't just keep your opinions to yourself anymore.
No,
otherwise you're wrong and you're evil.
Unfortunately, that seems to be true.
It's so weird. And there's so many other great creators out there that we get to see. Louise Simonson is doing her X-Men Legends with her husband, Walt, who does have his Ragnarok indie series with IDW. It's really cool. If you want to see some Thor stuff that's dope, go check out Ragnarok by Walt Simonson. Louise Simonson, I've heard, would love to continue working. She's got a lot of creativity left, still has years of productivity as far as comic book writing. I read her 2 X-Men Legends issues. They're better than 95% of what we're getting in the industry today. But there's no room for Louise Simonson. You know why, Eric? Because it would make all the new next generation that everyone is bored with look like the imbeciles that they are, in the fact that they have no writing skills. So there's no place at her at the table because she'd make everyone else look stupid.
I thought the biggest slap in the face was that Women of Marvel. Yeah, you talk about books still stuck on shelves. They let her write the introduction, praising a bunch of creators that could not have gotten jobs when she was writing X Factor.
No, because it was a merit-based
Superman,
business.
Man of Steel.
What is the old adage? They couldn't sniff her jockstrap because she's so far heads and tails above them as far as creativity and quality of the product that she puts out. No place at the table for someone like a Louise Simonson. We are seeing Peter David get some work at Marvel, only on miniseries, nothing within continuity. He would do better on any of their main titles. He's the 3rd best creator, in my opinion, at Marvel right now, right after Chip and Donny Cates. But he can only do Symbiote Spider-Man and Maestro books.
Well, I would argue that both Chip and Donny have to look up to see Peter David. But they got a better legacy. Yeah, I'm basing that on a 40-year career.
Yeah.
But it's
But he still got it.
Well, hell, Marvel won't let Chip Zdarsky do anything high profile.
No,
So
they won't. Chris Claremont just sitting on the sidelines.
And when they give him a chance, he plays along now too, which is unfortunate. His last couple things he's done have been very in line with what you get from the rest of the modern creators. And I'm guessing
same with Larry Hama. When he gets his random chance at Marvel Comics, it feels like watered down, limp dick Larry Hama.
Well, right? Larry Hama, I think, has legitimately changed his philosophy. I think he truly does agree with the new creators. Yeah, and that's unfortunate because that's, he's got a legacy of fantastic writing, and like I said, maybe that makes him more popular with the kind of reader that the industry is cultivating now. But I don't think he's making many of his longtime fans happy.
That's why I like John Byrne. It's like, fuck you guys. I don't need you. I have a legacy at Marvel and DC. Almost incomparable. There are some people, when you look at him, they can maybe compare what he did with Fantastic Four, X-Men, Superman, and some of the other things he's done. But he doesn't need them anymore. He's not going to play their stupid games. He'll go and do whatever he wants for his own fandom, and he'll do his own thing. He's got no time for them.
Well, that's true.
Because they would think they were doing him a favor if they let him write an issue of X-Men Legends.
Yeah. John Byrne will always be able to say there was an entire decade of comics, and you could argue the greatest decade as far as creativity. And he is one of two men that absolutely owned the decade of the 80s with Frank Miller.
Absolutely. So it just sucks because there are so many great creators that are still champing at the bit for opportunities, still willing to go and work on these great properties that we're seeing the ball dropped on each and every single week. It's, it makes a grown man want to cry to see what they're doing to She-Hulk, Black Cat, who are some of the other characters? Taskmaster, oh my goodness. Jed McKay, you were the worst. Who's it over on DC? Tim Sheridan. Why is this guy writing Teen Titans? Like, there's got to be somebody else available. Marv Wolfman's still out there.
Well, a great example of that, and you may know the title, I don't, but Roger Stern and Ron Frenz are doing a book for a small independent company. Why not a Marvel title? I mean, we know why not, but it's a shame. And I said those.
Listen, Leah Williams can't go to the other side of the table and wait her turn in line. Roger Stern's the one that's got to wait his turn in line. He's got to prove himself again.
Well, that's never going to happen because, like I said, they're never going to. No. They're never going to let these guys come in and show them how it was done once upon a time. And the sad thing is, I'm not sure how much that would increase sales because the industry has done a pretty good job of purging longtime readers. So the people out there that are still willing to even come back may not be that familiar with Roger Stern anymore. And most people that have moved on so long ago that they're not going to come back even if Roger Stern is writing something. So it's unfortunate, but it is reality now.
Yeah, it's crazy. It feels like if you want to read some of these old school creators that have a lot of juice left in the tank, you kind of got to go to AWA right now. At least they got a few of them on there doing some really good work.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I hate the way that they're treating a lot of these people. Bill Willingham did not deserve what he received from Heidi McDonald and The Beat. As he's returning with an acclaimed series, 14 Eisner winnings. Well, he's got the wrong politics now. Warren Ellis, I don't agree with what he did. But, the revisionist history and trying to purge out the way that they thought about these things just a decade ago is very laughable. Trying to downplay the importance of Rob Liefeld and X-Force #1 and what he was able to accomplish. Hey, you say you're a better artist? Well, he sold it better. Rob Liefeld can't even draw feet. Doesn't matter. He sells comic books. We need people that can actually sell comic books. So they're just trying to purge their legacies out. And they're just, there's so many people that have more comics to write. They just won't even give them an opportunity. It's not a good state of things, Eric, and it's definitely contributing to the state of the industry. Why we're getting so many, second, third, fourth rate comic book stories right now.
Well, we used to have people in the industry that were passionate about comic books. Now, I'm not sure what a lot of today's creators are passionate about. It seems they're more passionate about selecting their readership than selling comics to as many people as they possibly can by giving people, as many people as possible, something they want.
Yeah. If they wrote a good story, that's a cherry on top, because that's not the point anymore.
Doesn't seem to be. No.